Hey everyone, Paul here from freeyounow.com, and this is Driving with Paul, episode number 19. Now, a few days back, I wrote a blog post talking about this concept I call the universe winking at you. And essentially what this is, it's a fairly interesting phenomenon that a friend of mine and myself started playing with, and we kind of created in our lives, I guess about 13 years ago now, 13, 14 years ago. And essentially, probably the easiest way to explain it is, it's kind of like this. You know when you have one of those moments where you think about a friend of yours, or somebody you haven't talked to for a long time, like maybe you haven't seen them or talked to them for 2 or 3 years, and you think about them, and literally like a minute or two later, or maybe you're thinking about them in the morning, and like an hour later, you get a phone call from that same friend. And it's just one of these moments where you're like, well, that's kind of weird. I haven't seen this person, I haven't talked to them for like years and years, and all of a sudden I think of them and they call me, right? That's kind of weird, right? So you have these weird events. Or another example of this would be like, if you haven't heard a song for a long time, maybe some song that you really like or something, and you haven't heard it for a while, and then you think to yourself, man, I haven't heard that song for a long time. And let's say it hasn't been on the radio for like 10 years or something, or 5 years or whatever, and you just think to yourself, man, I haven't heard that song for a long time. And literally the next song that comes on the radio is that song that you were thinking about. Have you ever had something like that happen to you? Well, when these events happen, it's like these little coincidences, or I believe it was Deepak Chopra who coined this term, synchronicity. These synchronistic events that happen, and they kind of make you think, that was weird, right? Like you just start thinking, wow, that's interesting. That's a kind of a weird coincidence. But in most cases, if one of these events happens to you like once, every year or every couple months or whatever it is, you just kind of chalk it up to, coincidence or whatever, and you go on with your life, and, nothing really changes, right? But imagine if you could have one of those events happen to you every single day, okay? So every single day, something strange like that happen, and it's different every single time. It'd be something a little bit different every single time, okay? But something weird like that would happen, which would kind of give you that feeling of like, whoa, that's kind of weird, right? And every day something like that was happening. Imagine that for a second. Now imagine the same thing, but instead of just once a day, imagine that event, these kinds of events happening to you every single day, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or 8 times a day, every single day, multiple times a day, happening to you for like 2 or 3 months straight, okay? Well, that's basically exactly what my friend and I manifested back in, it was 2001, 2002, okay? And we were actually reading a very specific book, and we were following a very specific process that we kind of stumbled onto to have this effect happen in our lives. And it started to accelerate. Like when we first started it, we would have one of these events happen, and then, maybe another one a couple days later, and then maybe another one a couple days later. But after a few months of doing this, we got it to the point where it was happening like multiple times a day, every single day. And it actually got to a certain point where the severity of the weirdness started to get to the point where it actually started to scare us a little bit. And at one point it did actually scare us. We kind of freaked us out a little bit, and we kind of said, oh, you know what, maybe we should just kind of back off on this. And it wasn't anything bad or anything like that. It was just, things just got really weird, when it's almost like waking up from the Matrix, where reality just starts to kind of fade away, and you're just like, it just kind of gets a little bit scary after a while when these weird things just keep happening over and over again, okay? And it's almost like we got the point. We understood that the law of attraction exists, that we are manifesting our own reality, and that our thoughts really do affect what we create in this reality that we're a part of. And once you kind of get that point, you don't really need to manifest these things anymore. So we kind of stopped for a while. And now in 2015, I once again picked up this book that was kind of the catalyst that started this whole process. And I've been reading it again over the last like 3 or 4 weeks. And again, these things are starting to happen to me, right? Multiple times a day, pretty much every day, weird stuff is happening. I recorded a blog post yesterday where I talked about some of the things that that happened to me just a couple of days ago, when I was essentially asking the universe for an answer to a question that I had about this cold or flu that I've had for about a week and a half, okay? So if you haven't seen that video, that's I believe that was episode number 18, which is the one prior to this one. That's an example of this. But anyway, we discovered a method for accelerating this and creating this. So if you want to experience this in your life, you want to have this type of situation where you're starting to notice these weird things happening on multiple times a day, every single day, and it feels awesome. In the beginning, it's just like, wow, this is so cool. It's really magical, right? You might get to the point where things get too weird and it'll freak you out. Don't worry about it. You can just ask the universe to stop, and it'll stop. At least that's what happened to us. We're just like, okay, no more. We get the point. We can manifest weird stuff. We don't want to see this anymore, and it just kind of dissipated and went away. So you're always in full control of this. But essentially, here's what we did. Besides just getting into reading books about the law of attraction, and even books by people like Deepak Chopra, where he talks about synchronicity and stuff like that. There was one book in particular that I think really accelerated things for us, and the book is called The Science of Getting Rich by Waddles. Okay, and this particular book specifically talks about a scientific method of becoming wealthy and building wealth and building riches in your life using this method that the author was Waddles, and he wrote this book in the late 1800s. So this book is over 100 years old. Okay, this book predates books like Think and Grow Rich and stuff like that. So in this book, he basically describes a method of becoming rich. The scientific process of becoming rich. If you follow every one of the steps that he teaches in the book, it's virtually guaranteed that you'll become rich, according to what Waddles says. Okay, so we started reading this book and we started applying what the book was teaching, and all this weird stuff started to happen. Okay, and the interesting thing about this book is that even though it's actually, even though the book is specifically giving a formula for becoming rich, everything he teaches in that book can be applied to any area of your life. So you can actually use the book to manifest anything you want. It doesn't matter what it is. I mean, he's using money and riches as a specific, target for applying what he's teaching, but you can apply it to anything. You can apply it to your health. You can apply it to relationships. You can apply it to manifesting a new house. You can apply it to manifesting a new job or more success in your business. It really doesn't matter what you apply this strategy to. It's just that that book he wrote specifically for helping people to manifest money and become rich. Okay, but if you start reading that book, and now here's the thing, that book is actually pretty short. I think it's like 70 or 80 pages. It's not very long. You can read it in like one sitting. Okay, surely you can get through the book in like a couple of days. But we didn't just read the book once. My friend and I, we actually started studying this book like crazy. Like, I think I read it maybe 10 to 15, maybe even 20 times in a row. I just kept reading it and reading it and reading it and highlighting certain parts and rereading and rereading and rereading. And every single time I read that book, I got something different from it. Okay? And we kept studying it and we kept applying what he was teaching. It's really very basic and simple stuff. And it's easy to do, and it's also easy not to do. Right? And most people won't do it because they think, oh, this is too easy. But if you actually apply it and do what he says to do, you're going to start to see weird stuff happen in your life. You're going to start seeing miracles appear in your life, and you're going to go, whoa, this is kind of weird, man. How does this work? Right? So this book was kind of the catalyst that just exploded all these weird synchronistic events in our lives. So that was, the first thing that I would recommend. If you want to see this, go get yourself a copy of The Science of Getting Rich by Wallace Waddles. You can find the book on Amazon. You can find it anywhere. You can even find free PDF versions of it. Just make sure the version that you get is an original version, that it's not somebody who took the original version and rewrote it themselves in their own words, because you want to read the author's original words. Words have vibration to them, and the book was written in the 1800s, right? So it is written in an older style of English. So it is, you do kind of have to, read it a little bit more carefully, I guess you could say. It's not as easy to read as something that was written like more recently, but it's absolutely worth it to get the original version and read the, the unchanged words, okay? The second thing we did, besides reading this book, is we followed this process. And what the process was this. We would start setting our intentions, we would start reading this book, and then we would start to pay attention to weird stuff that would happen, okay? So I gave you guys a couple examples. You think of a friend, and then that friend calls you like a couple minutes later, okay? That would be an example of something that happens that's weird. When something like that happens, what you want to do is you want to, first of all, pay attention to it, like acknowledge it and realize that it has happened, right? That's the first thing. You want to pay attention to it. The second thing you want to do is you want to find a friend or somebody, or talk to somebody about it, okay? So make a big deal out of it and go, hey, something weird happened to me today, okay? I was thinking about George. You know George? I haven't talked to him for like 6 years. I was thinking about George. Literally 2 minutes later, the guy phones me, right? And your friend, okay, his job is going to be to do the same thing, to read the book, and if anything weird happens to your friend, for them to tell you about it as well, okay? So what ends up happening is, if you pay attention to these things and then you tell somebody about them, it's almost like you're telling the universe, hey, this is important to me. I want to see these synchronistic events, okay? This is awesome, right? Be grateful for them, first of all. So be like, hey, thank you, universe, for giving me this weird event, okay? And it'll start off with really small stuff, but as you pay attention to them and you're grateful for them, and you tell your friend about them, your little law of attraction manifesting buddy, find a person like that, or even just, below this video, leave a comment and say that here's what happened to me. This is weird. This is what happened to me, right? As you start going through this process and you start to, tell somebody that this is happening, you'll start to notice that more of these events will start to happen, okay? And this is what we did, okay? So we would notice a weird event, we would tell each other, and we'd tell some of our other friends, and then it started to accelerate. And the more we would notice them and the more we would tell people about it, the more of these events that we will manifest. Now, of course, if you understand, if you study the law of attraction, you understand that like attracts like. And what we're basically describing here is we're describing how the law of attraction works, okay? So what we basically did is we used the law of attraction. Like, some people use the law of attraction to manifest a relationship. Some people use the law of attraction to manifest money. Some people use the law of attraction to manifest health. We were using the law of attraction to manifest weird synchronistic events. And it was so funny because it's kind of like using the law of attraction to manifest more of the law of attraction. And it starts to accelerate really quickly. At least that's what happened to us, right? So we kept doing this over and over again. We just kept manifesting more weird stuff, more weird stuff, more weird stuff. We tell friends about it, and as soon as we tell friends about it, sometimes right there when we're telling them about it, something else that was weird would start to happen, right? And as we were telling those people about that event, something else weird would happen. And then we come back from like lunch and we talk to some other about it. We're like, oh my God, you won't believe what just happened. We went out for lunch and this happened. And as we're telling someone else about something else that was weird would happen, right? And it just started to accelerate more and more and more and more to the point where it was happening multiple times a day, every single day, right? And anyone can do this, right? Anyone can do this. There's nothing special about us, I don't think, anyway. And really, those are the two main things that we did. We went out and got this book, Science of Getting Rich by Wallace Waddles. You can find it free on the internet, I'm sure, but if you want to get it like a printed version, just order it on Amazon. They're whatever, $8, $10 or something like that. And then as you're reading the book, start to pay attention to weird synchronistic events that happen in your life. And then you could either leave it as a comment on my blog post that I have this on. If you're watching this video on YouTube, leave it as a comment below this video on YouTube. And if you want to start the process off, like if you haven't experienced a weird synchronistic event yet, because maybe you haven't ordered the book yet or whatever, if you want to start the process off, what you can do is you can think back in your life when you've experienced one of those moments, right? And it doesn't matter how long ago it was. It was about, let's say it happened to you when you were a kid or something, right? Makes no difference. Just think about an event that happened to you where it was kind of unexplainable, where something really weird, something really, synchronistic happened. And leave a comment below this video and just share it. And just a couple sentences. You don't have to go into too much detail unless you want to, right? You can if you want to. But just share it a little bit and say, yeah, when I was like 6 years old, this and this happened. Or when I was in grade 7, I remember, doing this and this, right? And then this weird thing happened or whatever. As you start to talk about these events and bring them up publicly or with your friends or whatever it is, or leave them as a comment on this video or whatever, what you'll notice is that it's like you're magnetizing your mind and you're telling the universe that this is important for you. It's important for you to experience these types of events. And the law of attraction will go out to work for you, and it'll attract more of these events, right? And now, somebody might think, and I'll be totally honest with you guys, at first I had this thought myself, right? The skeptical part of my mind was thinking, are these events really happening? Like, are these weird things really happening? Or am I just, because I'm paying attention, looking for them, am I just seeing stuff that is just normal stuff, but because I'm looking for these coincidences, I'm actually noticing them, right? And the funny thing is in the beginning, that might be true in your life. You'll see, if you start paying attention, you'll start to see these coincidences where something that's like, the chances of it happening are like 1 in 10 or 1 in 100 or 1 in 1,000. Stuff like that will happen, and you'll be like, yeah, I mean, that's kind of cool, but whatever, that's just like 1 in 100, right? The chance of that is like 1 in 100. But if you pay attention to it and you say, yeah, but it was still a cool little event. Yeah, it was something that was a little bit weird, but I mean, the chance of that are like 1 in 100, no big deal, right? But if you pay attention to it and you kind of talk about it with a friend of yours or whatever, the next event that'll happen that you'll manifest will be a little bit more stranger, just a little bit, right? So it might be like something that would be like the chances of it happening or of it being a coincidence would be like 1 in 1,000 or 1 in 5,000, right? But you can still kind of explain it away, right? But if you don't explain it away, you just kind of say, you know what, that's kind of weird. I'm just going to say this is, I created this. I manifested this weird event, okay? If you do that, if you label it as that, what you'll notice is the next event that'll happen will be even more weirder. It'll be something that'll be like 1 in 100,000, okay? And this is kind of what we did, is that we just started seeing everything as synchronicity, and the strangeness of these events became more and more unlikely, all the way up to the point when the events that we were manifesting were like, the chances of it actually happening were like, 5 billion to 1 or something. And then we knew that, this is not a coincidence. There's no way this is a coincidence. There's no way that we could have this coincidence happen like this, this many times in a row, every single day for like 3 months straight. There's no way. And that's when we kind of got to the point where our level of belief in the law of attraction was like 100%. Like, you know what? We're manifesting this reality. This stuff is real. Okay? So that's what it took for us to prove it to ourselves. Try it yourself. Get a copy of that book. Highly recommend it. The Science of Getting Rich by Wallace Waddles. And then go through this process and see what happens. And leave your comments below. I'm really curious to see what happens for you guys. All right, that's it for this video, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.